Hello, my name is Trevino, and this is my final project for my English 1301 class. One of the first things that I want to talk about are the things that worked in this class, and something that really worked was the feedback on in the discussion boards. Um, just to give some backstory, in high school the feedback was never useful. We would always get feedback like good job, and it would never actually give advice or critique my work or anything like that. But this class has showed me that feedback is actually something really useful, and it's really changed my expectations on it. Um, I feel like this class was different because we learned that in order to give good feedback, you need to put yourself in the other student's perspective and then see what you would change to it, or what you can um, what you can do to make it better and improve on the writing. And I think that I didn't just learn that feedback is good, but I also learned how to give feedback. As you can see here, we wrote what we would want feedback on, specifically, and that's something that I didn't think we could do in high school because we would never write oh, I would want feedback on this. But this class really changed how I viewed feedback. As you can see here, I put that I wanted to receive feedback on connecting my how I connected my inquiry to language. And all of the replies said that they actually gave feedback. As you can see here, she writes that I did a good job on connecting my inquiry, but she also says that I think I could make it better, I should try to do that. And then she also gives advice here and tries to help me improve on my work by actually giving me actual advice. She says maybe talk about language of music and about how musicians don't need words to communicate. And they just give me tips and actual advice. Um, but I also learned how to give feedback, which is a good thing. As you can see here, I answer her questions, and one of the things that really helped me was putting myself in her shoes and then seeing her research and seeing how I would improve on it if it were my own. And I think that's really an important skill to have, and I'm glad that this class has taught me that. I can use this knowledge in the future by applying it to real life and using that skill that I learned from putting myself in the other person's perspective and actually giving genuine feedback on the things that I would change and critique to improve the paper. Because I'm not here to put the person down or anything. I'm actually trying to help the person, even though I might want to change some stuff. I'm doing it to improve the paper. And I think it's a really important skill to have for the future as well, because I could use it in different classes, and just helping other people and giving them critique, actual advice that wouldn't hurt them but change it for the better, if that makes any sense. And that was one of the best parts of the class, because I would always I would just it's good to know what others think about your paper. And in high school the English classes wouldn't be like that. You would just kind of be alone, and then you would turn it into the teacher, and sometimes you would get a bad grade because you would you're just one person, right? And I feel like the feedback really gives you perspective, and it helps you understand what's actually going on in your paper, and it's not one-sided. You get these different views in this class. I got one, two, three, four people replying and giving feedback, and I think that's really important to have that perspective. And I also learned that by giving feedback, it's not just you can help people by other ways, not just by yourself. You can link someone a WikiHow tutorial on how to like make something better. Like you don't need to have all the knowledge to help someone. You can use Google and search up like ways that they can improve on their paper and just send you the link. It doesn't just have to be like by yourself. You can get other help, other resources to help someone else. I think that's really cool. A really nice skill that I learned from this class. For problems, one of the first things that come to mind is the multimodal projects because it was like difficult for me to come up with an idea of creating something that can convey my ideas like without it being a writing or like a research paper or something. It's just something really different that I've never really encountered. For example, this is my theory of writing paper, and it talks about how music is um, how musicians can express themselves more than they can with words. And the theory of writing paper, it was kind of it was easy for me because I've always written like research papers, and it's nothing new, right? But when they introduced the remix artifact, I had trouble deciding what I wanted to make. Like it's so abstract, and I wouldn't like it's not something that I've ever done before. I overcame this by trying to think outside of the box and figure out if maybe there's some kind of platform where I can show and convey my message through like media or something like that. One thing that I remember Bonnie saying was trying to play to your strengths, which is something that was really useful to me at the time because I'm really good like with technology and video editing and stuff like that. So for my remix artifact project, I stuck with like using the computer. And with that, I kind of connected like since my theory of writing was about music, what could I use that's like connected with music? And so here's my theory of writing paper remix planning that we did to like kind of like draft what we wanted to do. And so I came up with making a Spotify playlist and then putting the songs there and then making a Google form, and then like the audience would have to listen to the songs that I put on the playlist, and then like on the Google form they would put how they would feel about each specific song. Like if it made them sad, they would put sad, or if it made them feel happy, they would put happy. And that's just kind of how I overcame that like translation of thoughts from paper to something like multimodal, like the Spotify playlist. Um, this knowledge can help me in the future by always playing to my strengths, like always seeing like what's like easy for me to do, and when it comes to figuring out how to solve a problem, always figuring it out by finding out what my strengths are, sticking to that, and then just seeing what I could come up with. Another problem that I faced was finding an audience for my theory of writing. My theory of writing paper, like I said before, was about how music is able to convey emotional meaning more than words can. And I wanted my audience to be music listeners because it was about music, but Bonnie said that the audience is too broad because music listeners can be anyone really. Like they could be like music listeners could be like it could be specific. Like it doesn't have to be that broad. Like it could be people who like rock or college students who listen to this specific type of music, or you could really like tune it to what you want. And so one of the ways I overcame it is by finding out who would benefit from my information on the research paper. And that's one of the important advice that Bonnie gave me is in order to figure out who your audience is, you need to figure out who would benefit off of your research. And the audience that I picked is people who are learning how to write music or are trying to become musicians, because I think that they would really benefit off of my research paper by figuring out how how music works and how it's able to convey so much emotion. And I can apply this in the future by understanding that choosing your audience impacts the way that you write, and that a research paper isn't always going to be effective, and it's not always going to be it's not always going to be written for the teacher that's going to grade it, and that you need to specifically find your audience in order to in order to write it out and officially get your point through. It's like your research paper has to be tailored to your audience in order to actually like reach them and convince them and communicate the ideas that are written. And I think that in the future I can use this in my future research papers by first finding out who my audience is and then writing it tailored to them so that I could better get my point out and so that they'll understand. Another problem that I encountered was trying to find the credibility of a source and finding out whether that source was good for my paper. Sometimes I would find sources that didn't it wouldn't list the author, it wouldn't list the year, and usually I wouldn't use sources like that. And I learned from Bonnie that never use like sources that are kind of weird or like that don't give that don't show that they're credible. And in order to find if they're credible, you need to kind of do your own research, which is something new that I learned. Like, it's not always going to tell you whether it's credible. You have to find out for yourself and by doing this research and stuff like that. So in order to overcome something like finding if a source is credible, you just need to find the author and do research on them to see if it's true. For example, I'm going to use this source right here and try to find if it's a credible source and find out if the person that's actually talking about it, like talking about music and stuff like that, is actually like someone that I should use for my source, and find out if it's like someone that's actually like credible and knowledgeable in the area. So, but first I'm going to Google the person, David Rothenberg. And sometimes you gotta get really specific because usually you get like other people as well. Because I'm searching up David Rothenberg, but this isn't the right person, the one that I was searching for. So you gotta use keywords like and then search up music together. And when you use those keywords, you can like better use Google to find the person you're looking for. And this is the right David Rothenberg because it shows that they wrote a book called Why Birds Sing. And you can go on the bottom, and this shows right here. It says that he's a professor, so that's pretty credible. Birds Sing. Book by David Rothenberg. And you click on it to see if it's actually him. And yes, this is the author of the source. And to find out if he's credible, you can just search up like his degree or anything like that. We need to search up more because you kind of need to get specific with this. Why birds sing? Degree. Or search up like Why birds sing. Click on David Rothenberg. And he's got his own website and everything. So you can just search up and dig and look at the stuff he's done. So he's a composer. He has books. And you can just read about it and find out like all the things that you can and see if he's actually credible. And I think he is because like there's so much about him, and if you click on him, let me see. because he's got all this work and stuff. Because right here, graduated from Harvard, PhD from Boston. So now I know that this is a credible source, just by looking at all his like awards and his degree and where he graduated from. You could see how it's credible, and I can use this in the future by like being careful with my sources and researching people and figuring out if they're reliable or not just in school, also for personal research, of finding out like what the truth is, or seeing if someone, what they're saying is true or false. You could really find out like a lot of information about somebody and who they are, and seeing their credentials online. And finally, what I know now about myself as a writer is that I found out and learned throughout the semester that it's easier to write when I just write about all the ideas that come to me, and just writing them out as they are. That's how I kind of finished my my theory of writing paper. For the longest time, I would always procrastinate and stuff like that. But I figured out that the reason why I procrastinate is because I'm trying to make this perfect research paper, and something like that doesn't exist. And one of the things that I also learned is that revision is a really, really big part of the writing process, and that drafting is the first part, and you just gotta spill out all these ideas that come to you. And through revision, you just gotta tune it and perfect it as much as you can. And in high school, revision was always like, for me, the least important part. But this class has changed how I viewed revision, and it's become one of the most important parts of writing for me. I wouldn't really pay attention to it before, but now I understand it's an essential part of the writing process, because it's like so, like, it's just so huge now. Like knowing that the first draft doesn't have to be a perfect piece of literature, it really makes you relax, and it makes your research paper a whole lot better when you just calm down. I experienced that with this, and I put it off as long as I can because I thought it had to be perfect the first time around. But I learned that revision will help it become neater at the end, and that there's no need to get it right the first time, because you're always going to come back to it and change things. And the feedback as well, it gives you so much perspective, and then you come back, revise it, change it, make it better. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time, and that's something that I learned. I understand how the writing process works now, and this class has honestly given me such a different perspective on writing, knowing that the revision is a long process, not some short process that's just like editing the grammar and stuff like that. Revision is just improving upon what you have and adding more sentences or taking away sentences, and getting feedback on specific parts, and then seeing like what others would change about your writing, and then you yourself reading that feedback and then deciding what you would want to change. You don't have to put what they would want. You pick exactly what you want and then change it. You don't have to follow everyone else's feedback about what they've given you. You can just pick and choose, and then ignore what you want and then put what you want to change. I think that's honestly one of the best lessons about this class, is that the revision. It's brought me ease, and then in the future it's gonna help me with stress when writing for like a future research paper, knowing that the first draft doesn't have to be some perfect like masterpiece. It's nice knowing that that revision is a bigger part of it, and that over time it will become better, and that there's no, like, one of the things that I really liked about this class was the grammar. Like, you didn't really care about what we wrote or how we would write it, as long as we put our ideas on paper and then putting how we feel without having this like language restriction, like without having to worry about commas or like semicolons or anything like that. You kind of just give them you given us the freedom to write about whatever we would want. And I think that's also one of the most like good things that worked, is that we didn't have those limitations, and we really had the freedom to do anything. Not just in writing, but you given us like with the multimodal projects, you given us like so many like possibilities and ways to express ourselves, not just through writing but through different forms and different ways of expressing ourselves, like not just through writing but through like any like source. Like just like this video about how the guy didn't use a PowerPoint, he used dancers to show how this thing worked. And I think that's really cool that we weren't limited in this class. And I think I've learned a lot from different parts of the writing process, to learning different perspectives and stuff like that about feedback. Like it's really changed the way that I thought about writing. And I'm honestly glad that I chose this class, because I learned so much about the writing process. And that concludes my final project. Thank you, Bonnie, for being my teacher for this semester. And I hope that you continue to teach people and changing the ways that we think about writing, just the way that you changed my ideas of writing. Thank you so much, and goodbye.